So hello everybody, and thank you so much for coming along to our panel event for the professional placement year. It's lovely to see so many of you online and joining us. So this is an opportunity, this session is for students to get involved and to talk and ask questions to some of our lovely PPY returners who have very nicely joined us for this evening. So let's get started. Just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. We are recording this session, so it will become available to you all afterwards. If you ever want to go back and re-listen to some of the questions, or just if you aren't able to stay through all of it, then you can watch the rest of it. And you will find this all on the second year pathway, which I'm hoping you've all had access to. And if you are a first year, then it should be available on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it from there. It is really a great opportunity, as I've just mentioned, if you can ask your questions to our panelists. So please feel free to use the raise your hand function. If you don't want to chat, then you can put something in the chat and we'll be happy to kind of ask it out for you. But this is for you to ask students who've been in your position to the questions that you will have. So make the most of it. They are here to answer all of your lovely questions. We do ask you to manage your expectations, though. We haven't got a panelist for every course. We do have a nice mix, and they're about to introduce themselves to you shortly. But if it isn't specific to your course, then don't worry. It's good to just kind of get a general idea and not listen to myself or Becky waffle on any more than you possibly already have. So just manage your expectations. And if you've got any specific questions, then we can obviously address those later on. So by this point, especially for a second year, so the session is open to anyone and everyone who would like to join us. But at this point for second years especially, you should have already attended the last 3 weeks worth of timetable support, in which we would have gone through the nuts and bolts and general information of what the professional placement year is, pathways, which I think we've said it enough, but I don't think we can say it too many times. Pathways, which is where we're all guiding you to get more information and more support. We would have already gone through the timeline and deadlines and what's expected of you, your assessments, and the support available to you with regards to all of this. So your academic support and the placement support within the careers team. There was a session run by our careers advisors looking at skills knowledge and CV tips, and also a session on where to find your placement and how you can apply all of the knowledge you've got to your placement search. So hopefully you've all retained some of that information. It is all available on the pathway for you if you need to go back and re-look over anything. And after today, so you speak to our and then next steps would be to go back through the pathways, look at everything, keep working through, attend appointments, workshops. We've got a weekly drop-in. Just keep talking to us and keep the conversation open. And remember, we are here to help you along the way. So don't forget about us, really. As I mentioned, you've got the lovely placements team, and we are on hand to support you throughout your placement journey. You can see a picture of us all in the top corner there. Hannah, I say unfortunately, is actually leaving us shortly because she is on maternity leave now. But myself and Becky will be here throughout your PPY journey and throughout your first and second year whilst you're looking for your placement. We can signpost you to further support, and you can get in touch with us really easily through My Career by submitting a query. If you haven't heard this, then you will hear it again and again, but submit a query is the best way to get in touch with us with any of your quick questions. And they will be directed directly to us for us to answer and get back to you. No questions too big or too small, so just let us know if there's anything we can help you with, really. Now, just to give you a quick taste of what is to come, we have got a very brief video, and I'm hoping this will work, fingers crossed, just to show you on what the professional placement year is. So bear with me 2 seconds and I'll get that loaded for you.
What is a professional placement year? Is it a sandwich year? A year in industry? An internship? Work experience? It's all of these. At Bath Spa, we refer to it as a PPY because Professional Placement Year is a title that will be added to your degree. It will make you stand out from the crowd and give you a whole year's worth of work experience in either 1, 2, or potentially even 3 different workplaces in the UK or abroad. We could give you at least 5,001 reasons why you should do it, but we've had to narrow it down to just the top 5. Number 1. Try before you buy. If you love the role, yay. If you don't, yay, you've still got plenty of time to explore all of your options. Number 2, support every step of the way. Our dedicated placements team are on hand to help you with everything. Number 3, graduate with a year's experience. Impress any employer with all your experience on your CV and you could earn between £15,000 to £25,000. Number 4, future-proof your career. Grow your professional network. It's not what you know, it's who. They could hire you later. And number 5, learn new skills. You'll grow in confidence and be even more organised. Writing a dissertation will be a walk in the park. This opportunity is too good to miss, surely.
Definitely was just on mute there. Apologies.
Thank you, really.
There we are. So
okay,
nice.
So you might not already know, because you've been listening to us two chat. I'm Becky, and I'm joined by Ellie. We're both placements and work-based learning coordinators that specialise in PPY. And today you've come to the 3rd session of the content that we provide you all with. So yeah, well.
Is that okay, Ellie? There was something playing in the background.
I definitely just heard that. I thought that was you speaking, so I've lost.
No, not at all.
Completely.
No, there was a recording on, I think, Ellie.
Oh, we've got to love the end of these sessions. Nothing like a live online session, hey? So yeah, there's a very quick video there and an extra bit from Becky as well on what the professional placement year is. So for those who haven't attended, there's a very brief overview. It's a really fantastic opportunity for you to get involved and to get some more experience and try out all the different jobs that you potentially would like to kind of get more experience in. Now that you've heard us talk for a little bit and you've seen what the professional placement year is, I'm going to introduce you to our lovely panelists. Now, a couple of them unfortunately have not been able to make it tonight, but we'll go through, and if they don't mind, the ones who are here, they don't mind quickly coming off their mic, we'll go through your slides and just quickly introduce yourself. That would be fantastic. So first up, I do believe we have Caitlin. So Caitlin, if you don't mind just quickly coming off your mic and just telling everyone who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I study business and management and specialise in festivals and events, and I was in placement year last year. I did a little bit of a weird placement year, not your traditional placement year, so I took a lot of different roles on over the period of a year. Obviously being in events was a bit difficult with COVID, but it's definitely something that if you push hard enough, you can get way past those barriers. So I took on a lot of different placements within that, within a range of different roles as well. Some were sort of 1 month, some were 6 months. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect, thank you, Caitlin. I think our next slide is Marta, who unfortunately has not been able to join yet. She might pop up partway through, but you can see a little bit here on what Marta did for her placement and the different ones that she did, and a brief description of what she's provided. She was a graphic arts student, so if anything, that shows that the range, we've got Caitlin on business and we also have graphic arts students as well. So you're not limited by the degree that you are doing. There's so many opportunities that you can do out there. It's all about just finding out what those are and what you want to be doing with them. I think the next one as well is Anisha, who again, unfortunately, she did let us know prior, but we've kept her slide in because she has said to us that if you've got any questions, any psychology students or any psychology questions about finding a placement, then she's happy to answer them still. So if you've got any questions that are potentially for psychology based and maybe questions that you would have asked Anisha, then feel free to pop them in the chat and just let us know, and we can kind of save them and bombard her with lots of questions afterwards if you have them. So again, completely different to the business and graphic arts, but we've got such a range and all these different places that our students go to. Now we'll be able to hear from another one of our students. So the first Emily for tonight, if you don't mind coming up, Emily, and just quickly introducing yourself.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, my name's Emily and I do business management with a marketing pathway. I did my placement at Oracle, which is a technology company, and I completed it in the commercial cloud sales team. It wasn't meant to be a virtual internship. I was meant to go to the office. I happened to only actually see the office when I went to my interview, so it was a bit strange, but it was a really good placement year, and I almost feel like I got offered a lot more opportunities being virtual, and I met a lot more senior staff and got a lot more involved in different projects because things like where you're based wasn't so much of an issue. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about having a virtual internship, please let me know.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Emily. And on to the second Emily of tonight. If you don't mind coming off, Emily, and just quickly again introducing yourself.
Hiya, I'm Emily. I'm a textiles design student. I spent my placement year in Cornwall, and I worked as an assistant for an artisan gift hamper company making products and learning about the ins and outs of running a small business. I then moved to Falmouth, where I was doing a remote placement online for a startup media company. So I was interviewing makers who were inspired by Planet Earth and writing stories and doing graphic visuals. So quite a move away from textiles and making, but really interesting to talk to all different kinds of creatives. And I also, whilst I was living there, got myself a little part-time job in an art gallery where I got to sell local art and put on exhibitions. So I got to do a real range of different things during my placement year.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for your quick introductions. So I think it is now time to ask some questions. We're going to open it up to the floor. And yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to raise your hand and come off the mic. You can pop them in the chat. But yeah, we're opening up to you. So I can see Leah, you've got your hand up there. Have you got a question you'd like to ask our panelists?
Lee, we can't hear anything from you. Are you struggling to come off mute?
Oh, I'm not sure.
No, anyone?
Hang on, I think this is potentially an us. I'm now looking. For some reason,
Is everybody muted?
everyone's muted. Oh, this is
While Ellie's working out the mute, does somebody want to pop something on the chat? Maybe they can't. Bear with us just a second while Ellie sorts out them. It looks like for some reason the session's set up with panelists muted, not panelists, attendees muted.
Leah, can I ask if you can now?
Yes, I can talk now.
Perfect.
Right, amazing. I'm so sorry. Right, I'm going to do a quick rejigging with everybody. If you've got your hand up, give me 2 seconds and I'll work through it.
Lovely.
Oh, you can type, yay.
You can
Sorry about
type
that,
it forward.
everyone. I'll work out the rest.
Did you want to ask your question there?
Yes, yes, I have a question. I mean, many questions, but let's start with one. So I'm a journalism and publishing student, first year, and I was wondering, I mean, I saw that in the video, it said that I can do my professional placement year abroad. Is that right? And do I have like the same support if it's abroad than if it's in the UK?
Yeah. I mean, probably as the panelists that we've got on there didn't go abroad, I think that's probably better for one of me or Ellie to answer. And if you're asking, do you get the same support if you go abroad? Yes, it would just be that, unfortunately, we're not allowed to come and visit you. Unfortunately, we'd love to. But it would just be that the support would be done remotely. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yes, I just wanted to be sure that even if I'm abroad, I still like have the same support and everything will be as good as as right as
Yes.
everyone else. And
It will just be that it will be remote, and that we do that probably through Google Hangout, but you get the same level of support. So for any student going on placement, you get a call at the beginning, you get a visit or call midway, and then you get another call towards the end, and sometimes that can be emails as well to help you transition back into university. You also have the support of a PPY tutor for the academic work that you need to do while you're on your placement year. So it might just be worth asking that the panelists, maybe if they want to add a little bit about the support that they got while they were on placement. Does anybody on the panel want to pick that up?
Yeah, sure. So throughout my placement, like I said, because I was virtual, I did not manage to have any in-person visits because obviously they wasn't allowed. But it just meant that we had to do kind of Zoom calls instead, which, I think it might sound like it's not that supportive, but actually just having a contact at the university to check in with whether it's kind of formal, informal is quite reassuring because I was quite fortunate. I really enjoyed my placement, but I feel like if you had any issues, that would be a good time to approach the university.
Thanks, Emily. So yeah, there is definitely support, and some students will while they're on placement anyway, they'll be in touch quite a lot, and some students will really only hear from as a minimum of those kind of 3 touch points. But it is as much or as little as you need. But obviously, at the moment, for first years and second years, the support there's loads of support. Through the different ways that Ellie was explaining earlier in the presentation. So yeah, it's just about getting in touch with us. And if you're getting into next year and you find yourself getting a bit frustrated, just remember to reach out to us. Don't think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Get in touch with us, because you never know what we might be able to do to help you. With. There's a question on there from on the chat from Ella, who says, I'm a graphic communication first year and was wondering how likely it is to get a placement in Bath. I just wonder if, because I think that a couple of the panelists, am I right in thinking some of you, Caitlin, did you do one of your ones in Bath? Because I know you did multiple placements. I think you did, and I just wondered what sense you got from trying to find sort of different placements in Bath.
Yeah, so I did one of mine in Bath. I did it at the American Museum, and it's quite easy. I think if you know what you're looking for and you know who to talk to, then I think doing that research behind is really going to help you, because obviously Bath, although it's got a lot of different businesses, some of them are quite small. So it's just making sure that when you're targeting them, like if you know that there's a specific company you want to work for within Bath, just emailing sort of people or speaking to them via LinkedIn is great, because it kind of means you make that personal connection, which is a lot better when they're smaller businesses, or perhaps they're based in Bath and their headquarters are based in Bath. So just kind of take that personal approach. But there's a lot out there. Definitely, if you look for it, you'll find it.
Any of the other panelists want to kind of add anything about, you know, I mean, I know you're not from the same subject, but generally anything about kind of looking for placement, if you looked in Bath, or just generally how you found your placement. It might be interesting to hear how you each found your placement. Yeah.
I could say something about how I found my placements.
Yeah, Emily, that'd be great.
I just noticed on the chat as well that Alice asked about textiles. Yeah, so I had to sort of think outside the box because of COVID. Obviously, I think this happened with everyone. Sort of plans changed and things. So my first placement I actually just found through an advert on Instagram, and I think that can be a really good way to find things for design, art and design. So that was pretty lucky. And yeah, it was just a case of already having like a good CV and contacting them and being open to just discussing what the role would be. And with my online internship with Life Pops, that was actually quite an unusual situation in that I met the creative director at an art exhibition by chance and sort of connected with her and built a friendship with her. So my advice for like art and design, I would say, is just to put yourself out there and go to different things, and just be open to talking to people and like making connections, because I think that is the most important or one of the best ways to develop yeah, into a role.
Emily, did you, sorry, thank you, Emily. Emily, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so the way I found my placement was a representative from Oracle came into a lecture and kind of just give us a briefing of what Oracle is, what kind of internships they offer. And surprisingly, she was actually a Bath Spa student as well. So afterwards, I kind of went up to her and had a quick chat and just tried to understand, you know, what the year would look like if I did go on placement, because I was very apprehensive about the idea. Because I think, you know, one big kind of worry is that most of your friends will graduate whilst you're away. But if anyone is worrying about that, you know, do not worry at all, because it's surprising how many people do go on placement. But from that, yeah, so she encouraged me to apply online, and then I got a phone interview, and after I passed that stage I had to go for an assessment day, which was on its own a really great experience because I've never really been to an interview process like that. So it was really valuable just going to the assessment day alone, and you got to meet so many people, even the people who didn't actually get the jobs at Oracle. You know, I'm still connected with them on LinkedIn now, and we still catch up regularly, so it's really nice.
Perfect. Thanks, Emily. And I think, you know, it is, especially if you're thinking of Bath, because I know quite a few students think, okay, I think I want to stay in Bath for the year, because you want to stay connected with your friends, or maybe stay in the same accommodation as your friends. I mean, that I would always say initially, especially at the beginning of second year, stay open-minded about where you're going to go. However, if you do want to go into the Bath area, then there are lots of opportunities. It's just like the panelists said, it's about putting yourself out there, networking with organisations, getting in touch with the placements team, the careers team, your academics as well, and asking them for ideas. So it's just about asking for the help, and there's lots of help with that. We've had a few questions about accommodation. So I just wondered if you wouldn't mind, as a panelist, sort of talking about your accommodation and how you work that one out. So if we start with Caitlin, would you mind letting people, because I know you did so many different ones, what did you do about your accommodation?
So I mainly based myself back at home in Hampshire, but because I was doing placements through different lockdowns, obviously there was periods where I was in the office, there was periods where I wasn't in the office. So I kind of just hopped around everywhere. So when I was working in Bath, I kind of stayed with some friends in Bath. And then when I was in London, I was really grateful because the company that I worked for, they paid for my expenses. So if I needed a hotel, they'd pay for me to stay overnight. So you kind of just have to hop around. However, if it's more permanent, I'd suggest that quite often they have groups on Facebook and things like that where you can find joint houses. And I think it's Emily that did that for her placement year. So I might pass over to her about more permanent settings.
Yeah, so I actually moved up to Reading for the year, and it was really easy. The company often tries to help you find housemates. So the woman who kind of ran the internship program put us all into a group chat and said, you know, hi guys, this is going to be the intern cohort for the year, and you have to kind of step out of maybe your comfort zone and message people and try to get to know people. It kind of felt like freshers all over again, moving in with strangers, but it's a really good experience, and it's almost different to university because you are working full time. So it's not, you know, the same kind of big flat. It's more of like a more small professional house. And yeah, I think the only thing I could maybe advise on is make sure that your placement is definitely going to be in person, just because in my circumstance, I was paying for the house for the whole year, and I probably didn't really need to because I worked virtually. So just make sure you are definitely going to be in person in the office before signing any contracts.
And Emily May, is there anything, I know you could, because you lived down on the south coast, so was there anything you wanted to add to the accommodation question?
Yeah, well, my first placement was quite unusual in that the lady who owned the business I was working for invited me to stay with her. So I actually lived with her and her family as like a lodger as well as working for her. So that was quite intense, to be honest. And yeah, I was kind of, it's hard to separate work and your like personal life when you're in those situations. So that is just something to be wary of. But that was a bit of an unusual situation. I don't know how many people would end up in that sort of thing. But with my second accommodation, my placement was a bit more journalism based, and it was all online. And I just decided to move to Falmouth because I really enjoyed being in Cornwall, and I just wanted to carry on meeting people in that area. And so I joined with a student house down there because obviously they've got a big student population, and I was lucky enough to just get a room there. And through putting myself in that environment where I wanted to be, it just opened up doors. I managed to get the job at the art gallery, which was completely unexpected. And I just met really amazing people. And like Emily said, it was a bit like doing freshers again and meeting new people, but it was a bit more on a most of the students in my house were doing masters and were a bit older and more on a professional vibe, but a lot of them studied biosciences and like completely different things to me. So it was just really, really interesting and eye-opening to meet different kinds of people.
Brilliant. Thanks all of you about that. I think the thing to remember about accommodation is that I think if you're going to stay in Bath, then you may already have people that you might think you want to live with in during your placement year. But like you've heard from the panelists, you might also think, well, actually, I might stay at home, and maybe home wouldn't charge you rent, and that would make the placement year more affordable. But then if you're going to go somewhere further afield, I would say to you that then you might have to start looking at things like spare room and different websites to find somewhere to live. But like one of the panelists said, you can also, the company that you go to can often be really helpful about finding accommodation, and you can end up living in the accommodation the past intern was living in. So the companies are really helpful as well. I think if you're under pressure at the moment from friends or landlords about you know, signing up for accommodation for next year, which ultimately would be your placement year, then I think obviously just be careful, because if you sign up for anything, it's really hard to get out of, and then that would narrow your search down, if you like, to just being sort of Bath and the commutable area. So it's just a balance you have to find really between securing some accommodation and thinking you want to live in Bath for your placement year, but actually that restricting you to your placement being local as well. I hope that kind of answers some of the questions about accommodation. We're going back a bit. I think one of the students has asked who's the best contact in regards to planning and looking for your placement. So I mean, from a coordinator's point of view, I would say that the placements team, by submitting a query that Ellie talked about earlier, by doing your own research, especially, well, for any course. The student said they're a first year psychology student, talking to past students, going to have a careers appointment to talk about your future career aspirations and how your placement year can fit in with that. So there's lots of opportunities during first and second year for the university to give you some support, but I would also say networking through a scheme like Mentor Me at the university, which will give you an opportunity to talk to somebody within the industry you're interested in, and maybe they can help you thinking about what kind of placement you're going to do and what organisations you can contact. Just for the panelists, I wonder if you each wanted to, in kind of the same order, if you like, if you wanted to outline how you kind of looked and how you found your placement and what that journey was like a little bit. So Caitlin, if we want to start with you.
Perfect. So yeah, I think when you're looking for a placement, just make sure that you're not applying and wasting your time to every single placement that you see. I think it's really important to actually look into the roles that you're applying for and dedicate time to those roles that you really want, as opposed to applying to, like 50 different roles that actually you're kind of vaguely interested in. Personally, for me, I found most of my jobs through LinkedIn, which meant that I kind of had to build up my LinkedIn profile and make it look really professional. And I had lots of my experiences and I was regularly posting on there. But it does just depend on your personal preference. You might find things like Indeed easier, or going and speaking to people and handing in your CV. So it's definitely a personal preference. But one thing that I would recommend is kind of trying out all the different methods and seeing what's best for you, because some of them will give you feedback, some of them won't, some of them are going to give you updates, some of them aren't. So it just depends more what you want from it. But there's definitely a lot out there. I just, as I said, make sure that you're kind of specific and put the time into the roles that you really want.
Perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. And Emily, what kind of journey did you go on when you were looking for your placements?
So yeah, I completely agree with what Caitlin said. I think it's really important to make sure you only apply for the ones you really want to, because applying for placements can be quite lengthy and time consuming. So you don't really want to be wasting your time and confusing yourself by going for any other roles. So when I applied for mine, again, like I said earlier, I listened to the lady from Oracle in a lecture, and that kind of encouraged me to apply. The one thing I do wish that I maybe did more was use my LinkedIn, because although I had an account, I think not until I went on placement, I didn't realize how important LinkedIn is when going on placement. So I had just perhaps quite a basic application process, whereas I feel like maybe if I got scouted through LinkedIn, it would have probably made my life a lot more easier. Yes. So yeah, that's definitely a good point, to make sure you use LinkedIn to the best of your ability.
Thanks, Emily. And I think it's really worth saying, if you've got a LinkedIn profile or haven't, either way, update your LinkedIn profile. Let people know as part of your profile that you're looking for a placement, because that's often a way an organisation will get in touch with you. And you can also have it reviewed by the careers team through Submit a Query as well. So somebody can give you, some pointers on maybe how you can improve your LinkedIn profile. But yeah. Add anything to that? Hello, Emily. Oh, it sounds like Emily might be struggling with her.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, Emily. You're back. You're
okay.
here. I can hear you.
Yeah, I think having a good CV there really helped me with, because I sort of went with the flow and went on from one thing to the next thing. So just having that as a base was really helpful, and that's something that you can do at any time and keep updated. I would say as a design student, it really helped just to stay open-minded to all different kinds of experiences. My initial placements that I had organised, like pre-COVID, were textiles based, but because of situations changing, I had to be really flexible, and I did end up doing lots of different roles within the arts that weren't specific to my course. But I think that can have like loads of benefits as you gain other skills, and then you've just got more and more stuff to like add to your resume. So it's always worth just keeping that in mind.
Absolutely, Emily, thank you. I think a student, Amy, has asked what sorts of options would be available for working abroad as a psychology student. I think really it's worth saying that any student from any course can go abroad, obviously COVID allowing and depending on what the government of that country is saying at the time. But hopefully when you guys go out on placement abroad, going abroad will be less of an issue. We did have somebody coming onto the panel who did do their placement abroad, and so there are, if there's a role available within the UK, there's normally a similar role available abroad. I know that sounds quite broad, but it's true. The one thing I would say is research intern providers. So you can go abroad through an intern provider whose role it is to help you secure a role and look after you while you're on placement, and they specialize in that country. So you may have an organization, we use an organization called Pagoda, and they specialize in placements in Taipei, and they'll look after you while you're out there. They do charge for that, and those fees can be very varied, but yeah, it's definitely, especially if you're going further afield, it's definitely worth going through an intern provider. So it depends on where you're going and what it is you're planning on doing, but yeah, definitely an option. Did anybody want to come off their mic and ask a question?
I think the question is, can you come off your mic and ask a question?
Yes. But if not, it's fine, because we've got loads of questions on the chat. Somebody's mentioned about I think it's Phoenix, not what happens if you don't feel like you've got enough work experience or volunteering or on your CV. So if you don't have a lot of previous experience, and actually, Ellie, I wondered whether you wanted to pick that one up and just mention the internships and projects, for example.
Yes, so Phoenix, yeah, I think a lot of people might have the same questions that you've got about what if you've not got much previous experience or volunteer experience. You'll have experience from something. Transferable skills are key in most of your applications and your CVs. But if you're worried about that, then now is the perfect time to kind of start boosting up that CV and getting experience under your belt to help you get those placement roles. So for some of you who may or may not have heard of Bar to Bar Works, it's the kind of initiatives that the careers team and the offering that we have to help you gain work experience, basically. So we've got internships which are coming up, which are a brilliant opportunity for you guys to get involved and apply. We've got a range, they're coming up hopefully this side of Christmas. Announcements should be coming out soon, but you can get like a 2-week work experience internship through this scheme to help boost up those experiences and build your CV and gain skills, even if it's not directly related to your degree. Hopefully it would be, but it's all about you learning and building and applying those to the roles that you want. So keep an eye out for internships. We've got projects which are going live, which are collaborative projects. You can find out more about all of these on My Career. So it won't be harder, that's a lie, it might be a little bit harder to find. In finding the placements, you'll find them, but it's just in terms of that applying stage and what you can do to make sure that you are the one that stands out and you are the one that is kind of, you know, picked for an interview above the rest, and building on those. But if you don't have much, if you've had a part-time job, pub work, that says worked way too many times, pub work is just fine. Like, you have skills from that, but it's just building the relevant experience that you will want towards your placement and your PPY.
I wondered whether the panelists wanted to say as well, and we keep it to the same order, we won't get confused. What kind of, do you feel that before you had your placement year, you had a lot of experience on your CV? I mean, and that might be yes, and that's absolutely fine, but just out of interest, maybe it's worth asking you guys, how much kind of experience did you have before you did your placement year? Caitlin, did you want to start?
Yeah, so in all honesty, I really didn't have that much. I'd had a few sort of odd jobs here and there, and maybe where I'd helped out doing a couple of events, but generally there wasn't too much on there. Definitely not something that I felt like I could go out and be like, oh, you know, I can get a job after this. So I definitely added a lot to it when I was doing the placement year itself. I wouldn't necessarily say that experience is like the main thing, but I think if you can get it, definitely do, or at least put yourself out there to kind of do a couple of volunteering days here and there, working with someone or within a company that you know that you want to work for, just to kind of get a feel for things and just a bit more of a basic understanding of what goes on. But don't feel pressured that you have to have experience to do the placement year.
Perfect. Thanks, Caitlin. And Emily,
Yeah, I
yeah.
completely agree with Caitlin. I actually had no experience at all when it came to sales, technology, cloud, anything that my placement was actually to do with. But a good point that my employer, so the person who was my manager for the year, the reason he actually employed me was because I had no experience, but he thought I had traits that would mean I would do well at placement. So I think it's definitely something not to worry about. I think if you just be yourself and just try and focus on the things that you know you're good at. It doesn't matter if, you know, you've done 2 years here or 2 years there. You know, they've probably employed lots of people before you. They know what makes a good business student. So I think just make sure you focus on yourself and what you think you're good at.
Good advice, Emily. And Emily May, what about you?
In terms of experience,
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you have a lot of experience before you went on your placement year?
sorry, I think I was echoing then. With working with a gift company, no, like making products and things like that for a company, I hadn't done that before, so that really was learning on the job. And there were so many other things involved with running a business that I got to learn about that I had no idea about. So yeah, that was really good. With the online internship, interviewing people and writing stories, that is completely new to me, and those were all new skills which I got to learn. So, and they're really transferable skills. So yeah, absolutely no experience at all with that. And then with the art gallery, I had done a lot of retail before, but not with art. So that was yes and no, really.
Perfect. So I think you can probably all see that the students on the panel didn't have really any experience in the areas that they were going to. And it's worth remembering that when you're going on your placement year, that organisations aren't expecting you to have really any experience in that area, because that's what your placement year is for. And lots of students will come and meet with the team and say, oh, well, I've only worked at McDonald's, or I've only worked in Marks and Spencer's or something. And actually, that's exactly where you should be as students, and all the skills you get from part-time jobs, volunteering, and absolutely from your course as well. Don't forget about all the skills you'll get from your course. They are, you know, you will have lots of skills and experience that are very transferable to these different roles. And that's something that the placement team can help you articulate, and the wider careers team can help you articulate on your CV if you need help with that. We've had a question from somebody that says, how long did it take you to find your placement and to secure it? So, and I think we've talked about how you found them, but how long did it take you each to find your placement, would you say? And maybe it's worth saying how many you applied for as well. So if we start with you, Caitlin.
Yeah, so my placement during the applications, it obviously took a bit longer than I thought. I'd started applying probably January 2020, but obviously then everything was put on hold. I had a couple of placements that got cancelled on me. I couldn't tell you the amount of placements I applied for because it had gotten to the point with COVID that I was quite desperate and I was determined that I was going to find one. So I did apply for a lot, and I think learning from my mistakes, as we spoke about earlier, just applying to way too many and actually wasting a lot of my time. But in the end, I think I had about 6 placements in total, which worked really well for me, but it just depends on your personal preference. But yeah, don't hold out thinking, oh no, it's too late, it's too late. Actually, if you're determined to find one, I feel like you will find one.
Thanks, Caitlin. And Emily?
Yeah, I'm maybe not the best person to ask for this.
Honesty is fine.
I only actually applied for the placement that I got, just because I was quite lucky, I suppose, in quite a lot of aspects, and also because I was very picky. I knew I didn't want to apply for a lot because I think it would have confused me on which one I would have preferred to go for. So yeah, I only actually applied for the one placement that I got. So
well, I think that's brilliant, and it shows a range, Emily, as well, you know, of some people who apply for one. I know somebody who applied for well over 50 as well, so it really does vary. And Emily May, what about you? Sort of how many did you apply for, and when abouts did you secure yours?
Yeah, mine wasn't really a case of applying. It was more a case of just reaching out to the places I wanted to work and talking with them. It wasn't like an application process or anything like that. And I only really did that with the first one, and then the other ones kind of came to me. So yeah, not really the best person to ask, but again, it is just about being open-minded and having that like communication and connecting with people, I think.
Lovely, Emily, thank you. And just, I think that ties in with somebody, Charlotte, I think, has said, what are the important dates with applying for a placement year? And actually, the thing to remember is 31st of August is your deadline. So you've got until the 31st of August next year to secure your placement year. I would say start early with your application so that you're pacing yourself, because obviously your academic commitments in second year have started to ramp up some in comparison to first year, and you only have to have your first placement secured to actually by the 31st to go on to a placement year. So those are maybe the 3 most important factors to think about when you're applying for your placement year. But yeah, they are advertised all year in all different sectors, different organizations all over the UK and abroad. So if you haven't got one by Christmas, please don't be thinking, oh my goodness, that's, you know, I'm never going to get one. I would say, goodness me, 90% of our students don't secure a placement until Easter. So it's unusual for us to have students securing before then. So please don't feel that it's not going to happen for you if you haven't got one by Christmas. That's not a problem at all. And obviously that is for second years, or when you're in your second year.
Just to add to that, yeah, I actually found my placement like 2 weeks before I started it, like right at the very end of the summer. So yeah, definitely can find them very last minute.
Ellie, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Was that the date? Sorry.
Yeah, anything else that you think that I might have left out about important dates about securing your or applying for?
No, I think our panelists have done a fantastic job of kind of giving you a nice range of what to expect. The deadline, if you do want a date, if for those out there who do actually need a definite answer, the deadline to secure your placement is the 31st of August of your second year. So for the current second years listening, that is 31st of August 2022. That is your deadline for securing your placement. But as you've heard, it doesn't matter if you don't have it now before Christmas. As Emily May just mentioned, she got hers before, literally 2 weeks before. So you've got loads of time, really.
There's a lovely question from Rosie. What level of responsibility do you get? And I think, Rosie, what you said about what you want to do, you know, it is probably quite specific to what you want to do, and something that we can talk about to you individually. However, generally, panelists, what kind of responsibility do you feel you were given? And Caitlin, if we can start with you. Is Caitlin there?
I promise I haven't changed these settings.
Oh, the joys of
it looks
online.
like possibly lost connection. So, Emily, do you want to jump on there and go first?
Yeah, of course. So wait, sorry, what is being asked?
Level of responsibility.
Oh.
So what kind of, I mean, I think sometimes students are a bit concerned, Emily, that they're going to be making the cup of tea, do you know what I mean, and sweeping the floor, if you like. I don't mean quite that, but so what kind of level of responsibility do you feel you got? Did you feel like an intern, like a placement student?
No, not at all. And I think a lot of companies, if they are like nice companies, they want you to feel like you're a part of the team and not just an intern. So I think after my second day, my manager told me to stop signing off my emails as an intern and actually just put a job title, because you are a part of the team for the year. I thought I was going to probably not have as much responsibility as I did, because I was in a customer facing role. So a lot of my work was actually to do with the customers that Oracle sell to, which was a bit scary at first, but I feel like personally, I learn a lot more hands-on. So I was really honoured to actually be given this kind of opportunity to work with people from different companies, because it means I also managed to network a lot with people outside of Oracle, which I think is so important for when you're looking for a job after university. So yeah, I think do not worry about not being given a lot of responsibility, because if you ever feel like maybe you aren't doing as much as you're capable of doing, a lot of the time, if you just approach maybe a manager or an intern leader or someone you feel comfortable with in the company, they will give you more stuff to do.
Perfect, Emily, thank you. And Emily May, did you want to add anything about because you did a couple of different roles? Did you feel it was different level of responsibility depending on what you were doing? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely do feel there were different levels. It's very much sort of like thrown in the deep end and just cracked on with it really. But I think it's a good way to just learn quickly is by doing. And it was a maker's role, so it's very different to the other panelists that have spoken. But yeah.
Good. And do you know if we've got Caitlin back, Ellie? Has she managed to reconnect?
It looks
Hello,
like
I'm back.
yeah, she is.
Hello. Caitlin,
Sorry,
we're
my
talking
signal
about, that's all right. We're talking about levels of responsibility. So did you feel like an intern, like a placement student, or did you feel like a member of staff?
It kind of depended where it was. There was a couple of more internship roles where I definitely did feel like I was an intern, and I was doing kind of all the basic stuff. But then in some of my later roles, I think when I had a bit more experience, I then was pushed and I had a lot more responsibility, and I just kind of felt like another member of staff within the company. It wasn't as if I was singled out into a separate group. I was kind of just included in everything. So I guess it depends on the company you work for, and how they feel about interns, but most of the time they do still give you a lot of responsibility.
Lovely, thank you. So I think you can probably see that, you know, even if you do one placement throughout the year, it might be right at the beginning you feel like a newbie, if you like, and the level of responsibility might not be that much. However, as time goes on and you get your feet under the table, I think what you'll find is that level of responsibility will grow. However, there are some students that I talk to that are basically thrown in the deep end, and do you know what, for a lot of them it might feel quite stressful in the beginning, but they absolutely love it. So it varies and depends where you go. Ellie, can you see any other questions you want to pick up from the chat?
There is one from Alice who doesn't look like, it looks like she's lost connection or left, but I think it's still a brilliant one to ask. And I'm actually going to point this towards Emily May, because Alice is asking, as a first year textile student, is there anything I should be doing during first year to help prepare for a placement? So any advice there? Hopefully Alice will watch back and hear this.
I would just say to keep putting yourself out there and go to different things. I actually found the coordinator of one of my placements, I met her at an art exhibition, as I mentioned, and that was towards the end of first year. So that friendship sort of built up over time and then ended up developing into a placement, which is a really unique situation. I get that, but things like that do always happen when you just network. So yeah, just going to events and meeting with artists and different creatives and stuff. It's really, really great.
Thanks, Emily. Ellie, I didn't know whether we should, there's one from Rebecca Watts, and it says, there's been quite a few questions about psychology students.
I've noted some of them down, so I can ping them on.
Yeah, it's good to maybe pick up on that one for those psychology students who are still in there in the session at the moment. So Rebecca's put, is it possible to get a full year placement in a hospital or prison setting as a forensic psychology student, or should I think outside the box? And I think probably the answer to that is both. So start maybe with plan A, and like the panelists have said, be clear about what it is you want to do and start there. So Rebecca, if it's a hospital or prison that you want to go to, you're going to look for advertised roles, and in the event you can't find those, you'd make a list of organizations you want to get in touch with, and you'd get in touch with those organizations and ask them if they can offer you something. Is it possible to get a full year placement? Absolutely. We've had students, for example, who have worked for the Priory Group, who have educational and hospital mental health settings, and we've had students that will work for the Priory for the whole year, and they'll probably work as, for example, teaching assistants within the educational special needs setting, or they'll work as a support worker within a hospital setting. We've had students that have gone and worked within a residential setting for adults who have either learning difficulties or mental health difficulties. I think where he worked, they were also mute as well, so that brought a different level of experience for him as well. So there are possibilities to do a placement year within these settings for a full year. And even if you don't see them advertised, don't think, well, that means it's not possible. A lot of these places won't advertise because they don't need to, because they have students that will get in touch with them every single year and ask them if they can come along and be a placement student. But don't forget, for psychology students as well, don't forget about the civil service, because we had a psychology student who went and worked for the missing persons unit, for example, and the civil service often advertise placement years throughout the year as well. But you know, if plan A doesn't work, then think about plan B. It might then be about having an appointment with one of the placements team and letting us know what you've done so far, and then us helping you to think outside of the box. So yeah, anything is possible, and like the panelists have said, it's just about putting yourself out there, looking for advertised roles and getting in touch with organizations and networking. But Rebecca, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Just to jump in there as well, if that wasn't enough to convince you that it was possible, I've actually got 2 students that I look after this year. One of them works for their council and works as with the psychology department and assisting with children's services, sorry, so that's also an option. And I've got another student who is currently at a prison. She is there for the whole year. It is part-time and it is unpaid, but she's absolutely loving it, I have to say. So it is definitely possible. There's loads of options out there. It might just be a case of, if it is a volunteer opportunity, just working that out and looking at logistics for your year out, because it is such a fantastic option for you, but just being practical with your year.
And Amy, adding to that, I think Amy might have left the session, but I think that it's important to kind of add to that. Now, Amy said she wants to have a career in counselling, and she's a psychology student. However, she understands she won't be qualified to do that. So what sort of options would we suggest she goes for? Now, I think we've probably mentioned some of those, but I think on a wider point, for any student, if you think about what you want to do for your career moving forward, if you know about that, then your placement year is maybe an opportunity for you to do a similar role and to find out whether you do or don't want to do that once you've graduated. But also, it's really important to think outside of the box. So, you know, if somebody, for example, if you had a psychology student who wanted to shadow a clinical psychologist for the year, we do have students that do that, but predominantly that is part-time and unpaid. However, I would say to any of you, think about what skills and experience would be useful for you to gain to do that role in the future. So if you can't find it and secure it for part of your placement year, there's going to be placements and opportunities for you to do during your placement year that will make you really stand out once you've graduated. And so put those skills and experience with your CV and with your degree, and it's really going to make you stand out. So making a bit of a list about the skills and experience that you want to gain is a really good place to start. And without putting the panelists back on the spot again, Caitlin, I just wondered whether, because you did such different roles as well, do you think you gained experience and skills in areas you kind of didn't realise, or did you gain a lot? And how do each of you think what you've done is going to help you with regards to what you do after you graduate? Do you think that's kind of helped you in any way? Caitlin, can we start with you?
Yeah, so obviously working with a lot of different companies, I worked with startups, I worked with international companies, I worked with a range of different people who were also from different backgrounds. And I think that was what was really important to me, because I gained a bigger network of a lot of different people who did lots of different things and were in lots of different industries. And it gave me the opportunity to actually realize how different companies work, and how their organizations are formed. But I think the most important thing that I took from doing the different placements was that actually there were things that I didn't enjoy. So I took a recruitment placement, and I'm so grateful to have had Becky, because I was literally calling her like, I can't stand it. But it's good to have that experience and realize actually that wasn't something that I want to go into. And I can say that I've tried it and I've looked into it, and there's definitely been other elements throughout my placement that I have never even thought of before that I've really enjoyed. So there's a lot to take from it, but it's definitely one of these things that the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. But I think the most valuable thing that I came out with is definitely my network now, because I've got lots of different people in different places across the UK and even in America that now I can speak to, or I can ask for help with projects, and that's been really essential for me.
Perfect, Caitlin, thank you. And Emily, what would you say about that?
So I think the best thing that came out of my placement for me was actually to realise that I really want to go into the technology sector. It was something that I had never even considered. I think I was quite certain that I wanted to go into marketing. I wasn't actually sure where, but I did not even consider sales or even going into a technology company. And I think being exposed to that side of the business really made me think, oh, perhaps there's other roles that you maybe can't learn through business at university, because there's only so many subjects. So I think, yeah, the exposure to different sectors is probably the best thing that I've taken from my placement.
Perfect, thank you. And Emily May?
Yeah, I had a similar experience to Caitlin in that I worked in like different roles, and there were definitely things that I didn't like, which was a good experience to learn from, and things that I really liked that I hadn't thought of before. So yeah, and I think also just having that extra year of time to sort of percolate on ideas and stuff, doing a design course, and then coming back to third year with that whole extra year of inspiration and different ideas, it's really helped me to just throw myself straight into my work and feel really like on top of the game for third year. I think it's really beneficial.
Perfect, thank you. Perfect. I'm aware, Ellie, that there's a student, forgive me if I've said your name wrong, Eduardo, who's put his chat in twice, and I kind of want to put that together with some of the students' queries. So firstly, just with your area around research, that as a psychology student you want to do something less practical, so I'm thinking that you want to get experience, I'm sorry if I've got this wrong from your chat, that you want to get experience in research. And if that's the case, then there's a couple of things I would recommend. One, I'd recommend you come and have an appointment with one of us, either myself or Ellie, but also talk to your academics. And the PPY tutor for psychology is Alexandra de Souza. And she actually, I think she does conduct research at as well at Bath University. So it might, I know that she's spoken in the past about research students coming to do different work for their placement year. So I hope I've got the right end of the stick about that, but I think that's what you meant. But basically, if you want to do something less practical for your psychology placement, I think the thing to say is anything is possible. And we've had quite a few questions from students about what do I do if I'm criminology or environmental science. And I'm just aware that there's a lot about different courses. And I think the best thing to say is there's a possible placement in for any course or for any type of role that you're looking for, and I think your best course of action is to come and have an individual appointment with one of the placements team to talk through your plans, because obviously we don't have enough time to cover absolutely every course while we're on here. So yeah, there's lots of links we can share with you. If you submit a query on My Career, we can also get back to you and share some links with you if you haven't got time to make an appointment. So there's lots of opportunities to talk very individually about what you want to do. Ellie, is there anything else on there you want to pick up?
I'm just picking up a couple here. There's one from Lauren and another one from Leah, kind of all about payment and needing to be paid, or are all PPYs paid? Leah, no, not all PPY opportunities are paid placements. We've got lots of students who are doing volunteer roles or just kind of low paid positions. So it doesn't need to be paid. However, it is all about you kind of looking at your situation and your own circumstances and whether or not that is something you can afford to do. As I mentioned previously, I've got a student who's at a prison. It's a volunteer role, it's unpaid, but she's living at home, so she's living with her mum and she gets help with commuting. So that kind of balances it out, and there's a part-time job as well for her. So no, they're not all paid opportunities, but they might be. But it'll be all about you looking at your financial kind of situation and working out what works best for you, whether or not that's doing a couple of placements alongside, or maybe do one unpaid for a while and then finding one that is paid. But you can talk to us about that if you have any concerns. And for Lauren, in terms of doing a psychology placement and definitely need to be paid, absolutely fine. Cannot guarantee that all placements in that area will be paid. Psychology is notorious for being unpaid, but that does not mean that it is not a possibility for you. It will just be a case of research and looking at the roles that you want to do and where you'd want to do them, and maybe thinking outside the box a little bit in what you would like to do. And I'm slowly working up the chat, actually, another one from Leah about positions, PPYs being related to your degree. Now, Becky, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but no, in theory, it does not need to be directly attached to your degree.
No.
But your future career, what do you want from it? It's all about what you're gaining from your year out, and where's that kind of taking you? How is that helping you develop, and where is that leading you? But again, you can talk to us about it. I'm aware there's a few more questions, so whilst Becky does the next few slides, what I might do is just note them down and we'll get back to you individually with a bit more information, if that's okay with everybody.
Perfect. Thanks, Ellie. And I think some of the other questions I've seen, hopefully some of what I'm about to say will answer some of those questions as well. So just with regards to, well, first of all, I do want to say thank you to our panelists for answering those questions and being so honest. And just for the rest of you, for your next steps, the slides have just moved. Bear with me. Yeah. There, next steps. So just with regards to your next steps for the first years, and these slides are put on Minerva, and also I'll do an email to first years. It's about doing the pathway. It's about doing the first year pathway, because that will give you everything that you need to know. And for second years, the pathway is compulsory, so I would ask you to get onto the pathway, because again, that gives you lots of information and lots of help that you will need. If you've come in as a guest, so you're not involved in the PPY at the moment, then you can do a PPY learning pathway, and that way you can express your interest. Now, we have got Workfest that's on at the moment, and I'll talk about that for a very brief moment on the next slide. But really, for all of you, first or second year, you can't really apply for any role without a great CV. So if you can attack that in first year or at the beginning of second year, that will really, really help you, because it's such a big job. But getting the first CV and cover letter together, everything else will feel really easy after that. And there's lots of support with that. We do workshop, there's a CV pathway, there's guides, there's animation, lots of things we can share with you to help you perfect your CV. And once you've got it together, then you can submit it for review, and one of the team can get back to you then and let you know how maybe that you might need to improve your CV. There's opportunities first or second year for you to network, so that would be through schemes like Mentor Me, which I mentioned earlier, the BARSPAR award, and Rate My Placement as a website is a brilliant website for placements, and they also have lots of online networking events that you might want to go along to. You never know who you'll meet and who you'll get to talk to. And like we said earlier, consider some work experience. If you're a bit concerned about your CV, you don't feel that you've got a much that you can put on your CV, you can always consider an internship or a project. And somebody asked about careers appointments, and yeah, you can book a careers appointment or a PPY appointment through My Career, and the link is there as well. PPY appointments are only available to second years, but if you're first year, you can book a careers appointment, and they'd be able to answer your questions as well. So Workfest is on at the moment. Hopefully most of you have heard about that. It's open to absolutely everybody. It's on for a full 2 weeks. I just want to highlight to everybody who's still on at the moment that there is one on interviews, and that's on Monday the 8th from 3 till 4 o'clock with an outside organisation called Mentor Me. Now, hopefully, once you've got your lovely CV, interviews will become more of a thing. And actually, if you want a little bit of help around how to attack an interview, then I think that's a really helpful session to go along to. And you can book your places through that link through your My Career account. Now, that's just a little bit about the different sessions that are available on Workfest. And as you can see, that Shortlist Me one is on Monday. Okay, so a massive thank you to the panelists, and a huge thank you to Ellie as well for organising this. And just to let you know that if you've got any questions, and apologies if we haven't got round to answering any particular question, we've had to keep it as general as we can because of the amount of people that we've had on. But we are absolutely here to talk to you about your individual plan, either through submit a query, booking an appointment to come and see one of us. You can come to the PPY drop-in, which we have every Thursday from 2 till 4 o'clock. So if you just want to ask an individual question, come along to the drop-in every single Thursday. Just pop in, and you don't have to stay for the full 2 hours. You just pop in and come and ask your question. So yeah, basically that is it from us. Has anybody got anything else that if they want to come off mute and ask a question, because we still have got a few minutes. Otherwise, you're free to go, and thank you so much for attending. Ellie, anything you want to add?
No, just to echo everything that you've just said, Becky, there's loads of opportunities for you to come and talk to us, so please feel free to ask us any questions. I'm also going to stop the recording now, so if you want to come off and not be recorded, totally fine.